Hello and welcome to P2P Live. My name's Catherine Kennedy. I'm the Managing Director of People to People here in New South Wales. Delighted to be with you for a second week in a row, so becoming a bit of a regular in this hosting gig, which I'm very much enjoying. It's 12:30 on a Friday, which means it's time for our regular jobs and employment market update, where we bring you information on what's happening across the jobs and employment market across Australia. So thank you for tuning in. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So whatever platform you're watching on, we can see your comments. If you're watching live and you've got a question, we can see those come through. So please drop something into the comments if there's something that you would like us to address, or if you have a question about what we're talking about. I'm in our Parramatta office today, which means I'm coming to you from Darug country. So I did want to acknowledge that and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So we've got a regular packed agenda, as we always do today. What I did want to do just before we get into the agenda is a little bit of a quick plug. So it's the SARA Awards tonight. So that's the SEEK Annual Recruitment Awards, which are awards sponsored and hosted by SEEK, of course, but very much celebrating the recruitment industry. And I'm very happy to say that People to People is a finalist in two categories. So excellence in candidate engagement, as you can see on the screen there, and also large recruitment agency of the year. So this is for the year last year, obviously. So they're down in Melbourne, these awards tonight. So good luck to all of the finalists. I know that our team's very much looking forward to going along, and yeah, an exciting time to celebrate our industry. So hopefully next week we can bring you some good news that perhaps we've been winners, but even just to be finalists is something that I'm very proud of and very proud of our team. So quick plug for that. But look, setting that aside, I'll give you a bit of an overview of what we'll go through today. So as always, we've got the regular numbers section. All the news this week has been around inflation, so I've got some information that I will share with you around that. We've got jobs that need to be filled right now. They need to be filled this afternoon to start on as early as Monday, the first of the full working weeks that we're going to have in a long time, although I think there's one or two states that have got another public holiday on Monday, so the 4-day weeks roll on, but there's jobs that need to be filled with a very quick start, so we'll bring that to you. Then we're going to have a chat to Will in our Melbourne team. Will's going to talk to us about onboarding remotely. So that's a not uncommon thing to happen now. So Will talk to us about that. We've got our Twitter poll result from last week. And of course, we'll have the Twitter poll that we'll put out to the Twitterverse for this week as well. So that's the plan of attack for today. As I said, questions, if you've got them, please pop them into the comments. But let's get into it with our regular numbers section. Okay, so as I said, all of the news this week, or it's certainly been very topical in everywhere that I've been reading, or all the conversations that I've been having, has been about inflation. So you can see on the screen, with thanks to Callum Pickering from Indeed. He's got really good content that he shares on Twitter if you're interested. But this is a graph that just summarises what's happening with inflation going back to 2002, so going back 20 years. And inflation is the highest it's been in 20 years. And that's been a bit of a headline that you would have heard around the place over the last couple of days. What you can see, the difference there between the pink and the blue line. So the pink line is headline CPI, so that's the real inflation number. The blue line is taking out some of those very things that can fluctuate wildly or be very variable. So things like the impact of petrol with the Ukraine, etc. So, but both of them you can see a very, very sharp increase, and that inflation number at over 5% is the highest that it's been in 20 years. That core inflation number, so even normalising everything else, it's the highest it's been in over a decade. So certainly a lot of upward pressure there. If we jump to the next slide, Jacob, we'll be able to get a little bit more of a sense of what's happening quarter on quarter. And I think what is really quite astounding in this graph is the incredibly sharp increase from the December quarter to the March quarter. So you can see the December quarter there to the March quarter, it's a 2% increase just in that 3 months, but it's over 5% if you're looking at that annual change. Going back to 2013, and it was pretty steady as she goes through, all of those years. Obviously a pretty, and that's the recession there in March 2020, pretty steep decrease, but its inflation is well and truly on the up. So I thought it was interesting to consider that. And if you jump to the next slide, Jacob, what impact is that going to have on salaries? So, it's very topical once again around wage growth and the fairly sluggish wage growth that Australia's been experiencing over the last decade or so. This impact to the real cost of living for people. I know I went to buy my coffee from a place I haven't been to for a little while today, and I think it had gone up about $1.50 just to buy that cup of coffee. And I'm sure that's the experience of many of you watching, buying your coffee certainly at the Bowser, going to get your groceries. So that inflation and the cost of living is going up substantially, but is that having an impact on salaries as yet? So there's data around the wage price index that will be released in the next couple of weeks. I was hoping that I could share those parallel, but what I've got on the screen here is some historical data around wage growth, both for Australia and New Zealand. So obviously we'll focus more so on Australia, but what's been happening over the last 20 years or so. And the blue line there is the private sector, the pink line is the public sector, but following a pretty similar trajectory. And certainly since sort of the 2012, 2014, it's been very, very steadily bubbling along at 1 to 2%. That's been our experience in the market. I'm sure if people have been potentially looking at work or trying to negotiate a salary increase, that's been one of the challenges. I'm expecting, although we haven't got the data on this yet, but I'm expecting that there will be a strong upward push on salaries. And at the front line in the market, it is what we're seeing from candidates demanding higher salaries and organisations realising that just to keep up with the real cost of living, there needs to be an increase in salaries. So our Kiwi cousins, not a dissimilar story. You can see a little bit more lumpy through those sort of early 2000s, but not a dissimilar story. So I thought that was interesting, and it'll be interesting to see as the months play out that correlation between this rising inflation and what impact that has on wages. And I know that's something that is very important for people, making sure that those things increase concurrently. There's one more slide on the numbers, if you jump to that, Jacob, which just dives in a little bit more detail into what's happening across the different locations or the different capital cities this is within Australia. So people to people, we've got a presence across Australia. And you can see on the screen there that if you live in Perth, your cost of living has gone up 7.6% in 12 months. So, and 3.3% just from the December to the March quarter. So huge increases there, followed by, who have you got next? I think Brisbane and Hobart and Canberra and Darwin are all pretty similar there, Melbourne, and then Sydney's had not quite as steep an increase, but pretty high cost of living from the outset, I would say. So big changes there, and I thought that was just interesting to give a more detailed snapshot of what's happening in the different locations. But overall, 5.1 is that inflation figure, which is what's been released this week. So I thought that was interesting. If you've got any questions about what's happening there, particularly if you just wanted to know what's happening with some of the what's happening in the market around salaries, and that slide that I just showed there around the salary trend, that is actually from it's a slide that's taken as an excerpt from our P2P post, which is our market report, which is being released next week. So I know a lot of our consultants will be out there in the market talking to people to share that information. But if you're interested to know what's happening in real time around salaries, particularly in the context of this rising inflation, please reach out to me. I'm happy for you to contact me directly or any of our team, which you can contact via the website. And we'll put links to where we've sourced that data in the comments as always. So that's the numbers section. Let's jump into our next segment now, which is around these jobs that we really need to fill very quickly. So let's get into that if we can, please. Fill Job Friday. It's Friday's one of my favourite days in the recruitment industry because things do tend to happen on a Friday, and we've got a number of roles with an urgent start. So the first role on the screen you can see there's being led by Liam in our Sydney team here. It's a company accountant, looking about $50 to $55 an hour. So you can see a snapshot of the key responsibilities on the screen there, as are Liam's details. So if you think that could be right for you or someone you know, please jump on to Liam. We'll go to the next one if we can, please. So this is from our Queensland team. Once again, it's a temp role. It's to start ASAP. I think Brisbane might be one of those lucky places that's got a public holiday again on Monday. So it would be potentially a Tuesday start. Customer service representative looking for prior experience in customer service, ideally in insurance if possible, although I think we'd be happy to consider candidates with more varied experience. And that's being led by Georgia. Her details are on the screen there. And finally, from Perth, it's a patent assistant. So this is a contract role initially for 13 months, looking to start immediately. You would need experience in intellectual property, and Rihanna in our Perth team is leading that assignment. So given it's a contract role for that length of time, it will be on a salary of $75,000. So all of those details are there. If you're available to start working straight away, please reach out to any of those consultants and do it quickly, because I know they're urgently looking to fill these positions. If you are on the fly and you're not in a position to sit down at your computer and send off an email or attach your CV, you can use Apply. So that's a way that you can send a video application. You simply download or go to Apply, and it'll send it off nice and quickly. It's a video CV, particularly with these very urgent roles that we need to fill very quickly. It's a really handy tool. So that's something that you can consider. Before we go and have a chat to Will in Melbourne, I know there's one other role. I think it's also a legal role here in Sydney, and we've just got a video that we'll show from Katarina in the legal team as we head over to have a chat to Will in Melbourne.
Hi there, I'm Katarina and I work in our legal support team here at P2P in our Sydney office. I'm currently working on a fantastic role in a highly successful national law firm, which is located in the heart of Sydney CBD. They have an established reputation for providing superior service to their clients and offer an inclusive and friendly working environment for their employees. Now, as a legal secretary, you'll be supporting at partner level. This is a fast-paced role with a great challenge, and your responsibilities will include drafting legal documents and correspondence, file and email management. You will liaise with all professionals, and monthly billing and invoicing. The ideal candidate will have proven legal secretarial experience within workers' compensation. You will also possess the following characteristics. You are extremely organised with the ability to prioritise tasks. You demonstrate initiative and a proactive approach to work, and an extreme attention to detail with the ability to follow strict processes and guidelines. This firm offers a great range of employee benefits, including social events, work-life balance, fantastic location, and you can be offered up to $90,000 salary package. If this role sounds of interest, please apply using the link below or contact me for a confidential discussion. Thank you for watching, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
So we're going to chat to, there he is, he's on screen already. Will, hello, how are you going?
Hi, Kath, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. It's Friday. As I said, Friday's my favourite day. So you're going to have a chat to us, and this I think is not an uncommon thing in the last couple of years for a lot of organisations, is about onboarding people remotely. So particularly, living in Melbourne for all of that time, that would have been some experience that you guys had. So what is it that you would share around how to do that successfully?
Yeah, of course. I think over the last couple of years, a lot of businesses were forced into onboarding remotely, but a lot of our clients are continuing to stick with that, which is really, it's a great way to onboard people, but it's really important that you do it correctly. There is a fine art to it, I guess. So, wanted to provide some tips today for our clients to ensure that our candidates are getting the best possible experience as they are being onboarded remotely. So the first tip would be around ensuring technology and system setup is ready to use from day one for the candidate. I guess this feeds in really closely with first impressions in the business. So if a candidate's coming into a business and first day their laptop, their phone, all of their systems are set up straight away, they can essentially hit the ground running, get straight into their role, and they'll feel really positive about it. As opposed to stepping into an opportunity where maybe their system or the technology that they're using might not be necessarily set up on their first day. So it really feeds into those first impressions and is a really important one that we speak to our clients to fairly regularly. The second point that I wanted to cover off, and I guess a great tip, would be introducing informal introductions to staff members. So I guess organically you get that in the office if you are working in the office. So in passing, you get an opportunity to say hello to different people, but it's really important that you facilitate that introduction from a remote standpoint. So I know one thing we love to do in Melbourne is setting up afternoon teas or morning teas when someone's introduced into the team. It's a great opportunity to meet everyone formally and informally, have a little bit of a chat, find out what the candidate likes to do outside of work and what they're like as a person in general. So I find it's a really good way to introduce them into the team and make them feel welcome. And the final tip would be around introducing some proper training and structuring to the candidate's day. Especially when they're just stepping into the business and finding out sort of what their day-to-day looks like. So yeah, I guess from an engagement perspective, it's really important to have a candidate who's working throughout the day and getting as much exposure as possible throughout the teams and what they do. And I guess having that structured training in place, it does give them that exposure, but also makes them feel like they're not getting thrown in the deep end. They feel like they can complete their tasks really effectively. So it's great from an engagement point of view, but also making sure that they're feeling comfortable in their role. So that's probably the 3 points that I would raise. And as I said, it is a bit of a fine art. It's something that you do have to work on as a business. It doesn't come naturally. But yeah, if you can introduce those 3 tips, I think it's a really great way to onboard people remotely in a really positive way.
Yeah, and I'd echo everything that you've said. I'm sure you've had this experience, but I know of clients or the people who I've spoken to who have onboarded remotely, and some that's been really positive and gone really well. And those things you mentioned, I think, were kind of hallmarks of that working. And then others where they feel like they've sort of just been thrown in or forgotten about, or the tech doesn't work, and they just don't sort of, that kind of water cooler conversation that you would get if you're just in the office. You miss out on that. So actually making an effort to facilitate that. So thank you. Now, I do have to give you a plug because you're also a recruiter, and no doubt you also want to talk to people looking for work in Melbourne as well. So if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, so you can definitely reach out on the contact details below that have just come up. So specifically, I specialize in the business support space. So as businesses move back into the office, a lot of those office-based roles are really popular at the moment, and it's a very busy time for us. So please reach out if you are looking for work. I'm more than happy to help.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for joining us, Will.
Perfect. Thanks, Kath.
All the best. Great. Well, that brings us almost to the end. Just the final thing is to share the results from our Twitter poll last week. And then we'll have a new one for this week, of course. So the question that was posed last week is it a bad idea to resign from a job after a short period of time? And most people, 52%, said it depends, and that's probably a fair thing to say. So 13% said, yep, look, it is a bad idea. It raises questions. 35 said, no, you have to love your job. So yep, you should definitely do it. But then nearly more than half of the respondents said, look, it really depends on the job and your situation. So that was interesting. The question for this week that we'll put to the Twitter sphere is, do you care when co-workers turn their cameras off during meetings and training? And I know that this, even in our business, it can be a point that's discussed about cameras on and everyone wanting to feel engaged. So very keen to see what the perceptions and the opinions are out there. So if you please jump onto Twitter and you can vote. We'll leave it open for a week and then share those results next week as well. So that brings us to the end today. Hopefully, Mr. Smith will be back next week in the driver's seat. Otherwise, happy to continue. I'm quite enjoying it. I think everyone's hopefully going into a nice weekend, returning to a 5-day week for most people next week. So hopefully that's not too much of an adjustment. But yeah, we'll be back next Friday. And thanks again for watching. All the best.